What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with another video. After the season ends, I like to do a video in which highlights what we learned from the prior season. So what did we learn from the 2022-2023 NFL season? I think we learned a lot. Before I get into those things, of course, we have to give a quick shout out to my partner, Thrive Fantasy. If you are interested in sports betting, specifically on player props, be sure to check out Thrive. On Thrive, you can bet on all sorts of sports, not just the NFL. You can bet on the NBA, the NHL, the UFC. There's also all sorts of weekly contests that they run that you can get yourself involved in. The best part is, if you're a new user, you can go use the link down in the description below. Use code CAVE, C-A-V-E, and you get a 100% deposit match upon your first deposit. So $10 is $20, $20 is $40. And 99% of the time, Thrive Fantasy has a new user promo running. So if you sign up your deposit, you'll get the opportunity to take, let's say, Jason Tatum over half a point, or if it's the NFL season, Jalen Hurts over half a passing yard. It's a free leg on your first slip. If you are interested, use the link down in the description below to sign up for Thrive Fantasy. Put in your first deposit. It would help me out greatly, and I would appreciate it if you are interested, of course. And let's get into the 4 things we learned this season. All right, so the first thing that I want to cover that we learned from last year is that rookie players are really starting to have a sizable impact in their rookie season. Of course, guys in the past, typically that are taken in the first round, do see a sizable workload in their rookie season, but now we're starting to see a trend where rookies that are taken in the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, no matter where they're taken, are getting on the field and getting an opportunity to prove themselves, and they're handling it. Now, don't get me wrong, the system and coaching staff matter a ton in this specific scenario, but guys just seem to be getting acclimated a lot quicker. All they need is the opportunity, whereas in the past, it feels like there's the slow and steady process where you give them some time out there, and if they show flashes, they earn more work. But now it feels like we're seeing teams just throw these young kids into the deep end, throw them to the wolves, let's see if they swim, let's see if they survive, and more often than not, they seem to be doing well. Kansas City Chiefs specifically have been running with this strategy for the last couple of years. I don't want to say they pioneered it because that would be an uneducated statement, but they've certainly been killing it, knocking out of the park. It's been one of the main reasons why they just won the Super Bowl this past year. They have a plethora of young kids, whether they be in their first or second year, that play a sizable amount of snaps. They play at a starter level, and they're excelling. 2 years ago, they brought in 3 guys, Reed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Nick Bolton. Their first season, they were thrown to the front lines. They excelled, and they were a humongous part of the Super Bowl they won this year. The same goes for the 2022 draft class. They brought in Sky Moore, Isaiah Pacheco, George Karlaftis, Trent McDuffie, Josh Williams, Jalen Watson. I mean, the list goes on. All these guys were super important to their run this year. This is clearly a recipe for success for the Chiefs, and they're not the only ones doing it, but I do think they're popularizing it, and I do expect to see other franchises follow suit. The Buffalo Bills, for example, did not use their rookies nearly enough last season. James Cook, Khalil Shakir, Kyer Elam, these guys needed to be on the field a lot more than they were, and they simply were not given the opportunity as much as us fans felt like they should have been given. I'm hoping my Buffalo Bills adopt this mindset, but yeah, nevertheless, throw these young kids in the deep end. They're most likely going to swim. They're coming out of college, their confidence is high, they're hungry for an opportunity to prove themselves, and that's when you're going to figure out probably what they have to offer, because they're certainly going to develop, but you get a good indication right off the bat. And the worst case scenario is you find out they're not ready and they have to sit behind a veteran for a year or so. And then the best case scenario is that they're a huge part of your Super Bowl winning team. I think this is a win-win situation and something that franchises really need to start doing. For the second thing that I think we learned in 22-23 is that we virtually cannot write off any quarterbacks until they are given a fair shake in this league in the correct system to really showcase what they have to offer. Because this year, more than ever, it felt like we saw a number of guys that everybody lost hope in, or nobody thought could be good in this league, or nobody thought could be good anymore, and they turned it around. They showed hope. They showed value. Hey, what you want about Tua? He has limitations, but he balled out, and he definitely broke the expectations of a lot of haters out there. Same thing with Danny Dimes. Nobody, and I mean nobody, had any faith in Daniel Jones, and suddenly here comes Brian Dable to give him the system that he can thrive best in, and he's one of the better dual threats that we have in the league. What about Jared Goff? I mean, this dude's been a laughingstock since his final year in Los Angeles, and in this season, he's leading one of the highest scoring offenses in the NFL. Veteran journeyman deserves some love as well. Jacoby Brissett had that Browns offense moving up and down the field while he was starting. If their defense was halfway decent, they would have been a playoff team. He had David Njoku finally coming into form. Amari Cooper looked rejuvenated. Donovan Peoples-Jones was looking like a real number 2 threat. And shit, he made that offense look far greater than Deshaun Watson did. That's all I know. The kind of thing with Andy Dalton. When he was back with the Dallas Cowboys, he looked like a complete pedestrian. But then with the Saints, although he wasn't great, contrary to popular belief, he wasn't terrible either. He actually looked like a competent veteran starter in this league. There was Baker Mayfield. He actually did get a fresh start with the Panthers at the start of the year. He ends up getting cut. He goes to the Rams, and suddenly looks like a whole new quarterback with Sean McVay. Of course, I can't go through all these guys without mentioning the best example, Geno fucking Smith. This guy has not been a full-time starter since 2014. 8 years. When nobody believed in him, Geno took a team that was supposedly going into a rebuild after trading away their franchise quarterback. He then broke franchise records. He then got them to a 9-8 record. He then nearly won them a playoff game against the 49ers. And this year is a perfect example as to why some franchises give quarterbacks opportunity after opportunity, because they want to see if their system is the right fit for them. There are always going to be quarterbacks out there that teams look at and say, maybe for one reason or another, he can still play the game, or he can play the game at a high level. He just hasn't been able to show it yet. Maybe he's a seasoned vet and he's still got some juice left, or maybe he's a high draft pick and he just got screwed over by the team he was initially drafted by, or maybe he's just a kid that has a ton of talent and it hasn't been tapped into yet. After this year especially, it just feels like you cannot give up on a guy too soon. Maybe they're just a square piece looking for a system that is the square hole, and you just never know if your system is going to be that. Third thing I feel like we learned from this season is that head coaches and coordinators collectively are probably just as important to a franchise as a franchise quarterback is. Some of you are probably looking at me like, yeah, no shit, dude, you're not a genius for that one. The reason I include it is because when Sean Payton got traded for the draft capital that Denver paid for him, there was a solid handful of folks that were questioning why the Denver Broncos would pay that type of capital for a head coach. They felt like it was stupid. It was overpaying. And that was when I realized, whoa, there's actually people out there that don't understand the importance of these guys to organizations. I mean, this year specifically, we were provided with more than enough evidence to prove how important these guys are. As Bills fans, I feel like we experienced this firsthand. We all saw Brian Daboll go off to the Giants, and then Ken Dorsey took his spot. And we didn't expect a seamless transition, but we didn't expect that much to change. But man, oh man, were we rudely awakened after Josh Allen at times had some of his worst moments in his 5th year in this league. Offense overall just wasn't quite as dominant as it seemed to have felt while Brian Daboll was around. Granted, Ken Dorsey is his first year. I expect him to develop, but still the point stands. On that same note, we saw what Daboll was able to do with the Giants, and we have all been flabbergasted ever since. He somehow took that team to the divisional round despite the fact that they lacked talent in comparison to all their counterparts. Then we have the Chiefs. Andy Reid's genius won them that Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes was outstanding throughout that game, throughout the playoff run as a whole. But the game planning, the adjustments, and the play calling by Andy Reid in that Super Bowl won them that football game. They had the Eagles confused all second half. Kyle Shanahan, another perfect example. This dude had 3 different quarterbacks in a singular season, one being the last draft pick in the latest draft. He somehow took that offense all the way to the NFC Championship game. That was Kyle Shanahan's brain doing a lot of that work. Then there's the inverse. The coaches that don't know what the hell is going on, that make a team fail expectations beyond belief, such as Nate Hackett. Urban Meyer from last year, another beautiful example. Offensive coordinators like Matt Patricia and Byron Leftwich were a humongous reason why those offenses were driven into the ground. And if my point still isn't proven yet, you can go check out Kevin Cole's article that he wrote when Sean Payton originally got traded. Highlights that essentially Sean Payton was roughly worth what a non-elite quarterback would be worth to an organization like Tyreek Hill. I mean, by now I hope my point is proven. Like I said, the whole article is in the description down below. It is a great read. He lays it out all for you very well. The final thing that I want to cover that we learned from last year is the importance of wide receivers, specifically number ones, because at this point in time, it feels like their importance has never been higher. Today's game, offense is king, specifically through the air. Pass catchers have never been more important, especially your top shelf number one guys. What they do for an offense and the impact that they've been having has been so fruitful. More importantly, what's become extremely evident over the last few years is that these top wide receivers are doing wonders for young quarterbacks in their development. At this point, it's a proven formula. We saw it with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Kyler Murray with DeAndre Hopkins. Most recently, Jalen Hurts has been blessed with A.J. Brown. We saw what that did for his development. Tua with Tyreek Hill. Can't believe I'm saying this, but what Christian Kirk and company did for Trevor Lawrence was tremendous as well. And we look at it inversely. What happens to quarterbacks and offenses when they lose their top receiver? We saw what Ryan Tannehill and the Titans offense turned into without A.J. Brown. We saw what Aaron Rodgers and the Packers offense turned into without Devontae Adams. Lamar losing Marquise Brown was significant. I think even though Dak had CeeDee Lamb, losing Amari Cooper was one of the worst things that happened to the Cowboys offense. The importance of these top shelf pass catchers, whether they're helping out young quarterbacks develop or they're helping an offense with a veteran quarterback, they are so imperative to the success nowadays. We're entering territory where we're talking about how important it is to have 2 number 1 guys, having a Devontae Smith and an A.J. Brown, or having a T. Higgins and a Jamar Chase. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs are an exception to this rule because, one, they have a top 2 offensive mind in football at head coach, and they also have the greatest quarterback on the planet, so they can get away with having Travis Kelce and a bunch of relatively average guys. But if you are not Patrick Mahomes / Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs, you're probably going to need not just 1, but probably 2 number 1 guys to get yourself over the hump. At this point in time, I feel confident in saying I think a wide receiver is the 3rd most important position on the team, a number 1 that is. Yeah, that'll wrap up the 4 things that I feel like we learned in the 2022-23 season. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Be sure you are checking out Thrive Fantasy. Use code CAVE down in the description if if you are interested. And as always, if you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, do all the fun stuff. If you want to hit the bell to be notified when I upload, I'd appreciate that. You want to go over to Twitter, follow me over there, I'd appreciate that as well. I have a TikTok down in the description that I think you should check out, and I hope to see you in the next one.